Today, the president continues to play to the most extreme factions of his political base, tweeting an attack against Bubba Wallace, the only black-sponsored driver in NASCAR. The president asking, quote, has Bubba Wallace apologized to all of those great NASCAR drivers and officials who came to his aid, stood by his side, and were willing to sacrifice everything for him, only to find out that the whole thing was just another hoax? Well, it wasn't. Actually, Wallace and NASCAR have replied in full in the last days and weeks that the rope found in his garage was, unlike all the others, shaped like a noose. The only difference was it had been there for a while and was not found by the FBI to be aimed specifically at Bubba Wallace. Tyler Raddick, another driver, tweeting today to the president, we don't need an apology. We did what was right, and we will do just fine without your support. The president clearly deciding this weekend, though, that an attack on critics of the Confederate monuments is a big appeal to his base during this holiday weekend speeches in Mount Rushmore and in Washington.
The radical ideology attacking our country advances under the banner of social justice. But in truth, it would demolish both justice and society. It would transform justice into an instrument of division and vengeance. Their goal is not a better America. Their goal is to end America. We will never allow an angry mob to tear down our statues, erase our history, indoctrinate our children, or trample on our freedoms.
And joining me now, NBC White House correspondent and Weekend Today co-host Peter Alexander, MSNBC political analyst Rick Tyler, PBS NewsHour White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, and Washington Post White House correspondent Ann Gearan. Welcome all. What a way to celebrate the nation's birthday and bring the nation together. Peter, the attacks continuing today, the Bubba Wallace, why would he go after Bubba Wallace personally with that dig today?
Yeah, Andrea, you're exactly right. Not just going after Bubba Wallace, but also perhaps his striking in that tweet was him being so supportive of the Confederate flag in his two addresses over the weekend that faced a lot of criticism. He tried to sort of uphold the American heritage, as he describes it, but steered clear of making any particular references to the Confederacy. He did that, though, in this tweet, and in speaking to one of the president's allies within the last hour, this individual described it to me as an unforced error, says it is a step backward, and it's the president basically pursuing a smaller and smaller slice of the pie right now. I was also struck by what Lindsey Graham said about this just moments ago, pushing back, one of the president's own allies, pushing back publicly to the president's statement. He said to Fox News Radio about NASCAR, they're trying to grow the sport, and I've lived in South Carolina all my life, and if you're in business, the Confederate flag is not a good way to grow your business. As we've witnessed, though, this is the president not just doubling, tripling, quadrupling down at this point on these culture wars, again, stoking these tensions, these racial divisions within the country, Andrea.
And Peter, you did great. We can hear you fine over the blower or the trucks and everything else on the North Lawn. Yamiche Alcindor, the president falling back on his denial in terms of the virus and focusing on dividing the country by going after protesters, emphasizing, any violence in the protesters, and really drilling down on support for the Confederate soldiers, saying that they were fighting for freedom, not fighting against racism.
That's right, Andrea. And what we see in President Trump is someone who is determined to be on the side of the Confederate generals, determined to be on the side of people who see American history, his critics would say, as white history. This idea that America treated everyone equally and that there was really no racial strife in America. That's the history that President Trump continues to harken back on. And what he's doing is really positing himself as an enemy to the Black Lives Matter movement, which, of course, has really swelled and has the support of Americans across all 50 states, including in red states. We saw people take to the streets saying African Americans should be treated equally, police brutality should stop. But what the president's doing is saying that movement that is really something that is organic, that is everyday Americans asking for their country to do better. He does not want that movement to succeed. And what he's doing is taking this political risk, which is he's looking at these people who are against moving America forward and saying, no, we need to be on that side of those people. I also think that this is really interesting that all of this is happening as the New York Times had to sue the Trump administration, the CDC, in order to get racial data on the virus that shows that African Americans and Latinos are dying and being infected in the virus at higher rates than white Americans. I think all of this together is really showing that the president is really running from the idea that there is racial inequities in this country. And it's an interesting strategy on his part. It's a strategy that worked in 2016. It's a strategy that didn't work in 2018. And we'll have to see if it works in 2020.
Indeed. And Ann Guerin, you were traveling a lot with the president and focusing on this issue. I wanted to share with a lot of our viewers an excerpt from what your colleague Dan Balls wrote as well today. He wrote, "Trump knows his re-election campaign is in trouble. He sees the fight against this enemy of his creation as his pathway to victory in November. His political weapon of choice is exaggerated and at times racist rhetoric designed to pit Americans against Americans. Never in our lifetimes has the Independence Day holiday been used for such divisive and personal ends." And you've watched it up close in your travels to Tulsa and other places.
Yeah, the president, Andrea, is really betting hard here on something that some of his own advisors think is a bad idea, which is to focus on an extremely small slice of America, which overlaps with some of his most hardcore, ardent supporters. The problem is that he drives away a large share of the electorate that he's going to need for his, at this point, quite troubled re-election campaign. And no one around the president who thinks that this is a bad strategy long term has been able to persuade him otherwise. I think what we saw this weekend and that Dan Balls identifies so clearly is the historical difference that we see now. The nation's birthday has really been for 2 centuries, and certainly in the modern communications era for most of the last century, been an opportunity for presidents to speak to the country in unifying fashion and talk about the things that unite us and talk about the things that make America great and look forward to continuing that greatness and all the kinds of soaring rhetoric that it's really easy to summon on July 4th. And instead, what we had this weekend in the speech at Mount Rushmore and then again the July 4th speech was the president attempting to divide Americans one from another. Some of the rhetoric recalls his anti-immigrant rhetoric from the 2016 campaign. There he was focusing outward on an enemy. Here he is making the enemy other Americans.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.